At the time of recording, Liverpool are top of the league. They've just won in the Carabao Cup, and everyone feels like Liverpool are dead cert favourites. Certainly, Kim, you do.
Hmm.
What could go wrong for this team if it's all going so well?
I honestly don't think that anything will go wrong for this team. And I've said it from the sort of first few weeks. The way that they're playing is just absolutely fantastic. From goalkeeper to attack, you didn't even have Allison. He's probably the best goalkeeper in the world. You didn't have him for the majority of the season, and you are running away with the league. You've really faltered once against Nottingham Forest, and then the Fulham game was a strange one because you got an early red card. And apart from that, I think you would have beaten Fulham. It was a fantastic performance. If anything's going to go wrong for me, and I don't wish it, but it would be an injury. I think there are a few players who you just cannot afford to miss. I don't think you can afford to miss Gravenberch at the moment. Van Dijk, of course, and Mohamed Salah. And I think we mentioned it on the other video about Arsenal and about Saka being the main killer for Arsenal. I do feel a little bit like Liverpool have the potential to have the same issue. I think Salah is much better than Saka and he's a better killer. But then you look at the number 9 and you think Nunes just can't score. Jota's injured again. Harvey Elliott maybe not quite up to the quality. Luis Diaz probably doesn't score enough goals. And I think once Salah does start to slow down, which is inevitable throughout the season, it's 29 goal contributions in 23 games. That's almost unheard of. He will slow down. It's about whether you have enough goals in the rest of the squad. I certainly think the quality's there, but that's the only way that I could see a slight dip, unless it was to be a big injury to a key player.
Yeah, I think injuries are obviously the thing that you got to be most mindful of, and how you would cope with them. And obviously, to a degree, it's something that you can't really control. You know, you can make sure your players are in tip top condition, but these things happen. So that would be the biggest worry for Arne Slot. I mean, there's a lot of talk about how brave Liverpool have been in certain games, and we've got here on the notes very brave with 10 men against Fulham, but ultimately they didn't win the game. And I think we obsess over intention. And we talk about, well, Liverpool gave it a good go, even though they were down to 10 men. Ultimately, they didn't get the result that they wanted. They've still dropped a couple of points. And Arne Slot clearly, felt that that was the best way to go about that game, given the circumstances. And fine, that's fair play to him. But I think we look at this Liverpool side and we look at them as being this, front thinking, red arrows type team that just fly around you, buzz around you like they were under Jurgen Klopp. I don't think they're that anymore. I think they are more controlling. I think they are slightly different. And I think maybe not being 100% sort of forward thinking at all times, because I don't think they have been at all times this season.
Mm.
I think that might be something that is a bit of an unknown with Liverpool. We've got to see how it goes over the course of the season. I'm not sure yet.
So I want to talk about the very brave thing.
Mm.
And I knew when this game was happening, I was like, H is seething on his sofa because the commentator was going, it's so brave, it's so brave. And you hate that about Ange as well. I think for me, it's less about the result, it's much more about the intention. Because when I think about, I'm only going to look at Arsenal because you're an Arsenal fan. Brighton, were you throwing men forward? Not really. Bournemouth, you were horrible and couldn't get going. And then obviously Man City's Man City. But Liverpool go down to 10 against Fulham in the first 10, 15 minutes. Liverpool were atrocious. But then the next 70 minutes, if you watch that game, you would think Fulham were playing with 10 men. And for me, that's more of a feeling of like, then the next time you go down to 10 men, you won't care. Whereas every time you guys have gone down to 10 men, it's like, we were down to 10 men. So for me, it's so much less about the like the intention of what people are saying, so much more about them going, we can win any game regardless of the scenario.
But it's just different ways of trying
Mm.
to get to the same destination. Liverpool think that the best way to deal with it when they go down to 10 men in this instance is to throw men forward. Arsenal look at it slightly differently and would go into a more kind of pragmatic shape, looking at the other things that they have in their locker, set pieces, etc., as a way of potentially winning the game. Ultimately, you can talk about how brave Liverpool were, but they've conceded 2 goals at home to Fulham. So the outcome is still not the one they wanted. They've just taken a different route, but guess what? They've ended up in the same place.
I hear it, but I think if you play Brighton 10 times with 10 men and play exactly like you did, well, you'll win 4 times. If we play Fulham with 10 men 10 times over, we'll win 7 times. And that's where I think the intention comes in because we're not going to get reduced to 10 men 10 times. I hope not anyway. You might do. But I think that's how you go about making the narrative around you that we're watching champions, and I think it builds a feeling as well that you feel like champions.
I think there's a psychological strength to this Arne Slot side that I actually haven't seen from Liverpool, even under Jurgen Klopp. I think you might not like me saying it, but I think under Jurgen Klopp there was a bit of an over emotionality to the team. Like they were over emotional at times, particularly when they were being hunted by Man City in those title races. And I think that eventually kind of became their undoing. I think under Arne Slot, there is a real psychological strength. They lost to Nottingham Forest at home, which they wouldn't have expected to. And just Slot's words after and the game after and the way that the players reacted was like, it doesn't really matter. We're going to win the next game. And they have like a confidence to them. And they went 10 men against Fulham. They went, Andy Robertson got sent off. And it didn't really mentally affect them whatsoever. They still enacted exactly what their game plan would have been with 11 men and just went gung-ho and tried to win the game. I don't think there was any fear that like Fulham could nick 3 points off us. I don't think there was any of that. I think there was just a psychological strength to, we have 10 players who are better than their 11 players, so let's just go all out for it. And that's why I think Liverpool are in such a strong position this year. And that's why I've tipped them for the lead, because I think not only has Slot got everyone playing much better than I think a lot of the players were capable of. We mentioned Curtis Jones. I didn't see Slot bringing this player out of him. But I just think they're so psychologically strong this year. It doesn't seem like anything's really impacting them.
I think they're undeniably the favourites to win the Premier League, right? I'm not trying to take that away from them. I think they absolutely are. But I just think this is a pure example of how narratives can dictate the way that something is viewed. Dropping points at home to Fulham, there's no way of packaging that up as a positive when you are in this Premier League and we've seen the bar been set as high as it has in recent years. There's no way of doing that. But because Liverpool's season generally has been very good, because there's been real positivity around Arne Slot, people will look at it in that way. If you drop points, it doesn't like this thing of they were very brave, so it doesn't matter.
But I think the narrative after the game was like when Arsenal lost to Brighton, it was feel sorry for us because that shouldn't have been a red card. When Arsenal lost to Bournemouth, it was feel sorry for us, it wasn't a red card. City, I can't really remember the narrative of that one. Whereas the narrative from Liverpool after that game, and I think that's what controls the narrative, is how the players play, was that like we should have won anyway.
I also think that the players, I think you said that the narrative controlled how the players play, but the players play also based on the narrative. I think we're in an age now where social media and the media is so intrinsically connected to the players. They're all on social media, and it will have an effect on them. It will have an effect on the crowd, which in turn has an effect on the players. So you talk about like, it's funny how the narrative can shift, and it is, and people decide what the narrative is. But that narrative will be helping the players because it'll be helping the fans inside. They'll see it. They'll see the support for Arne Slot. They'll see the faith in their abilities from the fans, and that will impact them throughout the season. And I agree with that. I think when Arsenal drop points, there are a lot of excuses that are used, whether it's by the players, whether it's by Arteta, whether it's by the fans. And I do think that has a negative impact over the course of the season. I do, though.
Because it's context. It's not excuses. It's context to the situation that you're in. Arsenal started the season with a horrible set of fixtures, a bunch of injuries. They went to Manchester City and they got that result that they did. And afterwards, the narrative among Arsenal fans was, we should have won that game, even though we were down to 10 men from just before half-time. We should have won that game. But this thing of like, listen, Liverpool are doing great. Arne Slot's brilliant. He's done way better than I thought he would. And as I've said already, I think they are the favourites to win the Premier League. I'm not taking anything away from them. I'm just highlighting the difference between the way that a draw at home is viewed when one team is... Because overall, Liverpool are performing at a higher level. So you're looking at that and you're going, it's a one-off, it's a blip. Whereas because Arsenal's season hasn't been that great, but then people are starting to focus and dig in deeper on certain results.
Do you not think that then, in turn, has an effect on the manager, the pressure on him and the players because of that?
In what way, though? But Mikel Arteta's not controlling the narrative.
But Mikel Arteta will be affected by the narrative.
He's affected by it because everybody's looking at his team with greater scrutiny. And that's frustrating for him. That would frustrate him. That would irritate him. Because he will look at it and say, well, the context played a part in why it went the way it went. With Liverpool at the weekend, they've dropped the points. But the narrative is, well, look how brave and great Liverpool were, and they'll be back next week. But that's built because Liverpool are having a really, really good season. Actually, the factors are the same. Did you think Robertson should have been sent off?
Yeah, I think so.
I think just about, but I think it's one that you could debate. I think it's one that you could debate. But because the general feeling around Liverpool is so strong and positive, that isn't going to dominate. Do you see what I mean? When you're frustrated, when you're...
But my point is that general feeling of positivity around Liverpool and the general support in the media for Liverpool will in turn have a positive effect on them. and it will have a positive effect on Arne Slot because he'll be answering different types of questions in the media. The players will be on social media and they'll see that and they'll say, oh, we dropped a point, but everyone thinks how brave we were. The fans are really supportive of us because of the performance we put in. And I think football is so psychological that the narrative around Liverpool at the moment, whether you think it's in just relation or unjust relation to Arsenal's fixtures this year, will help them because there is a massive positivity around that club at the moment. And as you say, they can draw against Fulham and it seems like a positive.
Yeah, but I'm, by the way, I'm not saying it should be doom and gloom around Liverpool. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that there's too much being made of the fact that they went and attacked the Fulham side at home when they were down to 10 men. That's what you should do. You want to be champions. That's the expectation. If you're going to criticise Arsenal, as people have done throughout the season, for being a little bit negative and maybe not being as front-footed when they went down to 10 men, because that's a given that they're supposed to be title challengers, why are we blowing smoke up Liverpool and making it out like it's a victory? They didn't win the game. They dropped 2 vital points. And if they lose the league by 2 points at the end of the season, is everyone going to say it's fine because they were brave against Fulham at home?
We'll come back to this. I'm sure we'll come back to this over and over again because there's 2 very different opinions on the table. Very, very, very quickly. Do you think if Salah signs a new contract, it's a positive or an overall negative?
I think it's a positive.
In terms of performance-wise right now, not in terms of him staying at Liverpool.
In terms of his performances, it's quite often that we see players, when they get their contract, just sort of flatline a little bit. Like, I think Mo Salah's level is so high that even if that does happen, he'll still be a massive asset. And I personally think that the speculation going away will be a positive for them.
I think the form he's on at the moment is probably because he's trying to make a point about his contract. And I think once he signs that contract, that form will slightly decrease. But he's still probably the best player in the world right now. I don't think it'll make a huge difference. But I don't think we'll see the same goal contributions because I'm sure he's making a point.